It is April 7th, 1986, months after the legendary Patriots vs. Chicago Bears Super Bowl. Vince McMahon is going to now try to pull off something that has never been done. A main event in 3 locations? Next on the Turnbuckle Talk.
They think they got the answers. I change the question.
Talk about your Psalms. Talk about John 3:16. Austin 3:16 says I just whipped your ass.
I will come away with the championship belt and see new horizons.
Ladies and gentlemen, the winner of this contest and new Intercontinental Champion.
Welcome back to Turnbuckle Talk. This is your boy Charlie Hustle. And obviously I have my distinguished panel with me here again. EJ the Mouth, Payne Gretzky, B Fluke, Bad Company, Brown. Gentlemen, you boys ready for tonight?
Yes, sir.
Ready as ever.
We are talking about the groundbreaking, dare I say, WrestleMania 2. Couple of quick, fast facts about WrestleMania 2. The first, which may or may not surprise you, depending on your level of fandom with the WWFE universe. This is the first pay-per-view event. So, WrestleMania 1 and the Wrestling Classic were both viewed on closed circuit. That is a far different media and marketing opportunity than what a pay-per-view can mean to Vince McMahon's bottom line. This is a big deal, boys. We're looking at when you have this kind of gravity involved, this kind of enormity involved, you swing for the fences. And if it's one thing that we've talked about here on Turnbuckle Talk is Vince doesn't mind swinging for the fences. He's holding this event and EJ, let me use my LeBron James voice. Not 1, not 2, 3 locations. This is the first time this has been done in wrestling. We're going to talk tonight about a 20-man battle royal. We're going to talk about the concept of having 3 main events in 1 pay-per-view. We're going to talk about the first time I've seen a cage in one of these events. But let's dive right in, because I think you have to start with WrestleMania 2 being so good, or being good based on the heels that were in this event. Bad Company, Brown, we're going to start with you. Give me the best heel of WrestleMania 2.
One of the guys I hated, which I'll speak on again, Macho Man Randy Savage. And the reason why he's a heel to me is because he used Elizabeth to sit there and take the concentration away from George the Animal Steel.
That didn't require much.
It really. but I think before the match also, I think Macho must have put some salt on top of one of the turnbuckles, and that's why George went over there and tore it up. But yeah, Macho Man, he knew what he was doing. Had Elizabeth out there looking good with a T at the end. He knew he knew that was the only way he was going to get past George the Animal, because George the Animal at that time was a beast.
Okay, all right, great, good start there. The first round, I'm impressed with that, Bad Company. Payne, we're gonna go to you. Give me the best heel of WrestleMania 2.
See, now finally Little's talking. The greatest heel is always usually Macho Man Randy Savage. But I'm gonna go another direction here, because we that's just a given that Macho's greatest, right? But in this particular event, I think Roddy Piper outdid him. With the cheap shots, the extra Vaseline on the face, and the pushing the referee. And he already had Ace Horton already planned to interfere and take cheap shots at Joe Frazier, and poor little Haiti kid was under the pile in there fighting too and everything. It's just a mess. Roddy Piper just screwed up that whole match. So I'm going to go Roddy Piper here against Macho for a change.
Okay. I'm impressed with that. EJ the Mouth, the biggest, best heel of WrestleMania 2.
Wow. You see, see what happens when you share notes with other people? They steal, they cheat. One of my catchphrases. My goodness. All right. Since you took those two,
If you can't beat them, cheat them.
well, I guess I'll go with what they're trying to change the tide on. Women's wrestling. The fabulous Moolah.
Mm.
The fabulous Moolah. My goodness. Some of the best wrestling I've seen in that event, actually. Oh, my goodness. She had the biggest heel attributes I've ever seen. Pulling of the hair. My goodness. Flipping over Velvet. I mean, who is this Velvet McIntyre? Get her out of here. She can't defend herself. My goodness. And at the end, after finishing off the match, you would walk off victoriously. No, you got to put an extra boot into the stomach of the loser. What kind of?
Well done. Well done.
I love Moolah. She's one of the all-time greats. She goes in the Hall of Fame, and justifiably so. She's paved the way for women's wrestling. There you go. And for on these stages, I should say, she paved the way. And now women's wrestling, if we want to say it, is one of the biggest draws of today.
Yeah. EJ, there was no morning after pill back in those days, so that's what we did. Okay.
Oh, man.
Big Luke, we're turning to you for your heel view of WrestleMania 2.
Well, I was gonna say y'all took everybody, but one person I say stood out the most as a greatest heel of WrestleMania since everybody's taken. I was gonna say Roddy Piper for XYZ reasons. I would have to say Jake the Snake for the simple fact this was his debut, and this is the first time we saw him. We knew he was a heel with him throwing the snake out. This is the first time we saw Damien. And this is the whole thing with the football correlation with the WWF and the Super Bowl and all that. Him against George Wells. I mean, what people don't know is George Wells was a wrestler in CWA too. After his career in Canada and after NFL. But Jake definitely, because this later set him up to feud. He was originally brought into feud against Hulk Hogan. So Jake got so popular, after that Hulk Hogan, he had pull and he had booking at the time. So the only reason that kept Jake from going head to head with him was Hulk Hogan. I mean, we'll get into that later, but I just want to say Jake the Snake.
I love it. I love it. In fact, I love it so much that's going to lead you to a very strong first round. Let's do a quick tally at the end of the first round. We have Payne with 6 points here at the end of the first round. We have Sam with 8 points at the end of the first round. We have EJ with 9 at the end of the first round. And Ben with a super strong 11 here at the end of the first round, giving me Jake there and giving me some additional facts. Always bodes well. We're going to take that and move into the second round here, boys. And I think the best way we do this here is we talked a little about some of these matches that were involved because of the heels, but I'd like to get your opinion on the best match of the event in its totality, just the best match, the best, that moment that you saw, you're like, hey, this is a really good match. And I want to start here with you, Payne. Give me your best match of WrestleMania 2.
Believe it or not, and I'm not a tag team guy, but honestly, it was Greg the Hammer Valentine and Brutus Beefcake versus the British Bulldog.
Wow.
Great technical wrestling. I'm a big Greg Valentine fan. If you ask who's the master of the figure four, it's always Ric Flair, but Greg Valentine's a close second. And villain or heel Beefcake is far greater than face Beefcake. Get face Beefcake the and then you got the British Bulldogs finally winning a title. I didn't really care too much for Lou Albano as their manager and Ozzy Osbourne thing just because he's British. Get him out of here. But it was a great match. Technically sound. You got Davey Boy Smith, you got Dynamite Kid, Greg the Hammer Valentine, and even though Brutus Beefcake is a hack, those three more than made up for it. So that to me was the greatest match on the card.
Well done, well done. Beef Luke, I'm going right back to you. Top match in WrestleMania 2.
I was going to say the tag team match, but Payne Gretzky took that from me. So I would have to say, I'm going to say the Battle Royal for the simple fact this was Bruno Sammartino's only pay-per-view appearance and one of his last matches. And Bruno was the longest champion in history. So I would have to say, for that reason alone, we got a chance to see him on pay-per-view for his, for the first time and only time in a wrestling ring in the Battle Royal. Whether it was a singles match or whatever it is, we got a chance to see Bruno for the last time. And he wasn't on the commentator table because, during 84 and during the 80s and stuff, he was on the commentator table. He actually got in the ring. So I would have to say the Battle Royal for that reason alone. That was Bruno's, last match and his only and first pay-per-view appearance.
I love it. I love it. I love it. That's another strong round there by Big Fluke. Bad Company, Brown, we're going to you. Give me the best match of WrestleMania 2, sir.
I'm not scared to sit there and say that same sentiment. The Battle Royal, to me, was the best match. In all honesty, I look at it like it was the biggest star-studded match of all. I mean, you had Tony Atlas. I mean, you had the Sheik, John Studd, Pedro Morales, Killer Bees, the Heart Foundation. I mean, you had a lot of the top, and we're not even talking about Fridge and the rest of the, listen. I just feel there was a lot of stupid fighters in there because I'm getting the big guys out. They're going out first. But it is what it is. Giant comes out as the victor.
Strong point there, Little. And the fact that you hit the notable Battle Royal participants is going to get you a bonus point section from Charles Jones because, it's notable that Tony Atlas, it's notable that Golden Boy Danny Spivey, Iron Sheik, Pedro Morales, pre-Pink Heart Foundation.
Definitely.
And they were finalists.
It's notable that we talk about these guys because they go on to be such great pillars of wrestling moving forward. That great point for you. You get the bonus points from me. EJ, I'm going to you here. WrestleMania 2, best match.
Best match. I've got to go with the star-studded match, in my view, which was not even a wrestling match, but takes place in the same squared circle, the boxing match. Piper and T. Now, to me, Piper and T, they had a nice promotion leading up to this. This wasn't the actual first meeting between the two. This wasn't actually the second meeting between the two. As we saw that, WrestleMania 1, they had another event after that. Look, Piper and T, what I love about this match is the leading up to it. See, you've got to build up and stir up some sentiment in the fans, whether in the stadium or at home. And so I think the T Piper match was great. You had stars brought out for it, crossover stars. You had music from Cab Calloway. It wasn't really music playing, but that's the music industry being displayed right there. Joan Rivers, she was big for her time in the 80s. Big comedian, big talk person. Who else do we have? We had basketball. Let's cross over into basketball. What's Daryl Dawkins doing over there? Announcing these names, even though they're just for a split second, here they come in and be announced for the event and promoting crossover people. And then we have the match. Now the match, boy, oh boy, here we go. Boxing, really? What are we watching? Rocky here? Nah, not quite. But Roddy Piper, I guess he held his own. Got to knock down Mr. T in that fight. Knocked him down the first round. Well, anyway, Mr. T really won that match at the end. Piper was wearing out. And then he said, boy, isn't this the squared circle? Let's get back to wrestling here. Body slam. Right here, T, for that. Oh, boy. Little did he remember, no, doesn't count in the boxing ring. You got to stick to boxing and the gloves. So to me, that's the best match.
I like where you're going there. I'm going to give you a -3 for not bringing up the behind-the-scenes feud between Piper and T. So you can't talk about the Piper T stuff without acknowledging that these guys really didn't like each other. And that's a big part of this story arc. Shame on you for leaving that out. -3 there.
He also missed the biggest marketing person in there. My old lady. Where's the beef? How you forget about her? That was the biggest campaign going.
Yeah.
That was the biggest campaign going. There was T-shirts, everything.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
right.
Yeah, I forgot all about her.
Where's the beef in your teeth? That was the old saying back in the day.
With this whole point system, that's what I got.
Well, and that's tough because let's go through our tally. Payne's going to end the first 2 rounds with 13 points. Sam's going to end with 16 points. Ben has a strong 18. EJ had 17 -3. Drops him down to 14. He's out because of the infraction. Because of that, EJ, we will give you the floor for your parting shots.
Well, listen, the Battle Royal talk, that was great. You're bringing over these crossover stars like I talked about with Mr. T and in his match, what we had going on in there. Listen, this event, we didn't talk much about it. We didn't get an opportunity, but it was a multi-venue event. We had three. The LA spot, the Chicago spot, and New York. Listen, Vince, you could call him a villain, you can call him a face, but he did great with the Federation. Now entertainment. But look, when you go into 3 venues, as the host talked about early in the beginning, hey, I don't know, that might be a negative. I think at that time it's a positive. You're trying to spread and stretch your brand, and you're trying to get out there. Regardless of the hits you'll take, look at that. Think of this also. You're getting 3 times the amount of money and revenue from packing out those arenas for only 4 events each. Listen, the fans got shortchanged, but you know what? He didn't. So on that note, I'm out.
Good point.
The mouth speaks.
The mouth is out of here. So Payne will come now to where you're also eliminated. Give us your parting shots.
I'm going to keep it short and sweet like the top of her dress. Shout out to Elvira's cleavage.
We're going to...
oh, damn. Whoa.
Turnbuckle
That's
talk.
wild.
You know, as we go into the championship round with Bad Company Brown versus Beef Luke, these boys always have opportunities to gain bonus points in these games that we're playing here. And I want to point out a couple of missed opportunities that the gentleman had. The first is in WrestleMania 2 and we're talking about the lead up of what we've kind of built with Turnbuckle Talk. So we started with WrestleMania 1. We did with the Wrestling Classic. Now here WrestleMania 2. In the totality of these 3 events that we've done so far, there has not been a bigger pop than Nikolai Volkov. We don't give enough credit to how over Nikolai Volkov was in the mid-80s in terms of that hatred that the fans had in the audience. I was a little bit disappointed that no one brought that up, but it was a major thing that stood out to me as I watched WrestleMania 2. The second thing that really stood out, which would have earned you guys a little bonus points with me, is John Studd going back and forth with Bill Frelick, the Rookie of the Year from the Atlanta Falcons at the time. I didn't care much about the player. It's the John Studd quote that stands out. John Studd says, and I quote, "You're not playing with a ball, punk. You're playing with John Studd." Hey, man. You're talking about guys behind the mic and giving you some gold. John Studd was on his game that night. Credit to John Studd. And then the last point I had as we go into the championship round here is we went through best match for WrestleMania 2. And I was a little disappointed that no one said Steamboat Hercules That was a very good match.
You heard the Bret Hart's claims on that match, right? How it was supposed to be him against Steamboat
Mm.
I didn't hear that.
originally, and they called him last minute and said they're gonna pick Hercules because Hurt got the most pops than he did. So originally that was supposed to be Steamboat versus Bret Hart.
It's a lot of behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah,
I like that.
I got some more stuff, but like I said, it'll come out when it's time.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, so now, speaking of when it's time, I think it's now time that we go into our championship round here, boys. And I think the best way to do it for WrestleMania 2 is to just get your overall thoughts. Now, of course, you're not going to get the bonus points for the things that we just talked about, but I would want to start with you, B. Fluke. Give me your overall thoughts on WrestleMania 2. Where do you land on this thing?
Well, first and foremost, I want to mention WrestleMania 2 was the only WrestleMania in history held on a Monday.
Good start.
Then, number 2, WrestleMania 2 had the 12 matches, and once the 4 matches were over in each arena, it was the rest of the event was viewed by the fans on closed circuit TV. So that was a first in history.
Yeah.
And also with WrestleMania 2, Vince, I'm going to speak from a business standpoint with Vince McMahon. He wasn't so much about the ticket sales with that and the sales of the event. Vince had already proven himself. But at this point, he was just basically marketing the brand, basically saying, hey, I can sell out these 3 arenas. And he proved that.
Yep.
So that's what he did. That's my overall thing of WrestleMania 2. I mean, granted, all the technical difficulties and all the stuff. Like another thing I'd like to bring up, and then I'll shut my mouth, was when, if you ever watch the original tape of WrestleMania 2, you'll see Lord Alfred Hayes interviewing Hulk Hogan. Lord Alfred Hayes' microphone wasn't working. You'll hear the audience booing. So it was that intense. If you ever watch that, but you're not going to find that on the Peacock version of it because that's an edited part on the WWE version. But yeah, it had its quirks and stuff. And, people say it's disastrous. It was a disastrous event, but I don't think it was. I think it was just basically leading up to WrestleMania 3. Jake coming in, Savage being, more exposed, Piper with the whole entertainment factor. And also the first time in history, you had a music entertainer giving the national anthem with Ray Charles. Because think about it, WrestleMania 1, you had Mean Gene Okerlund singing it. So this is to bring in the entertainment factor. Because next year would be Aretha Franklin, then it would be Gladys Knight. So it just kept going each year. So that started that trend.
Strong championship round there by B. Fluke. Bad Company Brown, he puts you up against the ropes here. How do you respond with your overall thoughts on WrestleMania 2?
B. Fluke. He done told everything. But he done covered everything. But, WrestleMania 2, definitely one of the greatest WrestleManias I've watched. A lot of great matches. 2 matches stand out the most to me, though. We got to see, what was it? It was my man Adrian Adonis being mollywopped, and it looked like, it looked like the domestic abuse fight. He's out there with the nanny skirt or dress or whatever it is, the makeup on and everything, and then you got this big hillbilly just whipping him.
Uncle Elmer.
This is before cancel culture, so if that was to happen now,
stereotyping.
Yeah,
it's best.
The Moolah match, I would love for it not to have happened. But, that was my intermission. That was my chance to go get a snack, go to the bathroom. But, McMahon outdid himself this time. He said, hey, I did it once, but I'm going to come and hit you bigger. 3 arenas, we don't, like you said, again, Ray Charles is now taking over for Mean Gene. We had my girl Elvira there. There's nothing more I really could say. We already covered it all. Say the
Yeah.
truth.
WrestleMania 2 did cover it all for us as well. And in terms of point scales here, I'm sitting on 13 here for Little in the championship round, but I'm sitting on a 19 for B Fluke in the championship round. Little, pardon me, Bad Company Brown, any parting shots before B Fluke goes off the top?
You know, I'm moving on up in the ranks here, but I'm coming for the belt next time. B Fluke, I'm coming for the belt. I'm signing off. I don't need.
With that said, B Fluke has his man laid out in the middle of the ring. He is climbing the post in the corner. He is at the top, and now he's about to go off the top.
Know your role and shut your mouth, Brown. And as the greatest champion in professional wrestling ever said, in order to beat a man, you got to beat the man. Quote Ric Flair, Nature Boy. Woo!
With that said, this is another episode of Turnbuckle Talk in the books. As always, we appreciate you guys tuning into this latest episode of Turnbuckle Talk. Certainly follow, like, subscribe the channel. We're going to be bringing you more content like this as we can be able to deliver you a lot of the golden age of the WWF, WWE. For our esteemed panel, Payne Gretzky, B Fluke, EJ the Mouth, Bad Company Brown. We'll catch you guys in our next discussion when we talk about the legendary WrestleMania 3. Until then, we'll holla.